What's going on, guys? Wei from Revolution. Here in my apartment in Geneva with Pim Koeslag, CEO and owner of Christiaan van der Klaauw. How are you, sir?
I'm good. You?
I'm really excited because we're about to launch our collaboration, and this is the Prometheus. And why the name Prometheus? Well, in Greek mythology, Prometheus was the bringer of light. He defied the Olympian gods. He stole fire and brought it to mankind in the form of technology, civilization, and knowledge. But we're using light in a different way here in several connotations. So first of all, this case is lightweight. It is grade 5 titanium, but it's also mirror polished, which I understand, and I think you'll tell us a little bit later, was not the easiest thing to accomplish.
No.
The second thing is this wonderful planetarium, which comprises the 6 planets in our solar system, as well as the sun, is also completely luminous. And every one of these planets is hand painted by none other than yourself. Am I correct?
Definitely. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Christiaan van der Klaauw to begin with, because I think we're at a perfect moment for this brand, right? We have kind of exited, I guess, what people like to call the hype era of watchmaking, where people were chasing watches like trophies, and I think we've re-entered a moment of rationalism and sanity. And I think people are really looking for authenticity in watches today, and authenticity is exactly what I think about when I think about Christiaan van der Klaauw and I think about you. But let's talk about your superhero mythology. How did Pim Koeslag get started in watchmaking?
When I started in watchmaking, well, that was quite a long time ago. I think started watchmaking school in Amsterdam, and that was like 25 years ago, maybe even more. Stopped counting. Yeah, and after watchmaking school, I did some internships, Groeneveld and Patek Philippe. And then finally...
Did you drink a bunch of beers with Tim and Bart?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, nice.
I still do.
Nice.
Yeah, and but I chose to go and work for this very small company, Frederik Constant, or at the time it was very small, we were like 10 people or something. So,
Pim, if I may interrupt you there for a second, am I correct? But the thing that set you on this path was you were determined as a Dutch guy to go and work with Christiaan van der Klaauw, who was kind of a hero for you.
Yeah.
And you actually tracked him down in his neighborhood, and he had a massive planetarium painted on his garage door. You knocked on the door and you opened it, and he was basically working out of his garage, creating these amazing planetariums.
Yeah, it's true, and not a lot of people know this, but the company exists already 50 years this year, and Christiaan now is 80 years old. So when 25 years ago, when I was at watchmaking school, he went to the classroom in Amsterdam, and he showed us the watches and everything, and I was so flabbergasted by his passion and his knowledge. And that I was so, I mean, it never left my mind. So when I finished the watchmaking school and all the internships, I went back to his house and said, okay, I really like to work for you, with you, because he was alone at the time. And he said, well, that's nice, but it's good for you in your professional life to go to Switzerland first and gain some experience. And so I did. 20 years later, I came back and was so fortunate that I could join the company and own the company even. So
that's amazing, Pim. What a wonderful sort of like mythology as well.
Yeah.
So in the interim, if I'm not mistaken, you went to Switzerland. You went to Plan Les Watt, right?
Yeah.
Or Plan Les Watch, as they like to say. And you started working with Peter Stas, another Dutch dude, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because Peter Stas, I always think of him as a guy that built up Frederik Constant to like a little mini kind of like juggernaut as well. But at the time when you visited him, there was no watchmaker. You were the first one.
Yeah, exactly. I was the first one, and even it was not at Plan Les Watch yet. It was in Ginboer, like in a small kind of office, like as big as this room. So that's where we started.
Amazing. And you very quickly became involved in a project to transform Frederik Constant into an actual manufacturer, right? Yeah. And I remember you telling me that, like, you know, Peter was obsessed with this idea that everyone was becoming a manufacturer. Everyone was creating their own movement, but it was all at the expensive level,
only
right?
High-end,
And you were like, hey, what if we could do it like at an accessible price? And then you guys actually went ahead and did that. Were you in charge of that project?
Yeah. Yes. After.
Right. So you were working on everything from basic movements all the way up to grand comps, right?
Yeah.
And then we even had the opportunity to collaborate because one of the things that you oversaw also was the creation of the Frederick Constant monolithic, right? And that watch is absolutely bonkers, right? The whole idea that you're taking out pretty much everything related to the regulating organ and you're replacing it with one monolithic silicon oscillator that vibrates at an insane speed.
Yeah.
That was dope. Okay, so we've established that you're a super smart guy and you're a brilliant watchmaker. And then at some point you decide that you want to fulfill this dream, which was initially, 25 years ago, you knocked on the door of Christiaan van der Klaauw, and you wanted to work with him, but now you had the opportunity to take the leadership of Christiaan van der Klaauw and guide it into the future, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Christiaan van der Klaauw. He started his company, as you mentioned, in 1974.
Yes.
So it's 50 years anniversary this year, so congratulations on that, that's awesome. And he has always specialized on planetariums, right? Using astronomical ways of telling time, which I think is really nice because it goes to the very roots of time telling.
Exactly.
Right, when man, where it's observing the planets rotating around us and wondering oh, I think this can be a system for telling time. It even goes back to this 150 BC when there's this Greek mechanism called the Antikythera, which showed the orbits of the planets around the Earth, which is incredible. Right? But Christiaan was really interested in this and he entered the AHCI in 1994. And in 1999, he successfully made his first wristwatch planetarium, which actually forms the iconography of the watch that's on my wrist today. So this is a watch that's been around for quite some time. Right? Now, what's so cool about this watch also was that you had several collaborations, right? So you had a collaboration in 2014 with Van Cleef & Arpels, right, for the Midnight Planetarium, and in 2018 for a woman's version of that watch as well, right? And you won the Geneva Grand Prix with this watch in 2018, but then you went on to win it on your own in 2021. Tell me about that, because it so happened that I was on the jury of the GPHG that year.
Yeah, it was a beautiful watch. It still is, of course, but it's sold out quickly after. So we won a prize for astronomy with this beautiful planetarium IJsselga. Which is the oldest planetarium on Earth in Holland, which has this beautiful blue ceiling, hand painted, of course. And this we did on the dial, so hand painted dial with the blue stripes of the wooden ceiling of IJsselga.
So I remember seeing Daniel and Maria, who were the previous owners of the brand, right? And congratulating them. And then shortly afterwards, I remember having a beer with you in Geneva. We were working on our monolithic project at the time. And he's like, "Wei, I want to tell you something." And I was like, "Yeah, what is that?" And he said, "I've just purchased Christiaan van der Klaauw." And I'm like, "Dude, that's insane. I love that." And then I think the first thing we decided on is let's work on a watch together, right? We started talking about a luminous planetarium, and you're like, "I think I can do it, but it's impossible to do on a large scale because I'm the one that's going to have to paint every one of those planets with lume." And I'm like, "Dude, if you are going to accept the challenge, I'm happy to follow you as well." And then I remember you, Pim, you were like, but if we're going to make it luminous, let's play with this concept of light also. Let's make the first Christiaan van der Klaauw planetariums also executed in polished grade 5 titanium. And I'm like, "Pim, I love this idea because, it makes the watch effortless to wear. And I've always loved grade 5 titanium in high polishing." So tell me a little bit about these two challenges, the creation of the luminous planetarium and also the high polished grade 5 titanium case and what that meant to you in terms of work.
Yeah, well, first of all, the planets was a huge challenge because maybe you know that this luminous Super-LumiNova is powder. So you have to mix it with epoxy and then you have to kind of paint it, but it is so small, the planets are so small that if you have too much of that on top, then they will touch each other. So you have to keep it like a very thin layer, but the thinner the layer, the less lume, right? Like pigment. So what we did was first have like a white coating, very thin white coating, and then hand painted the luminous on top, which is very cool, and it lights up like crazy.
Yeah, and of course we're not going to hold you in suspense. We're going to show you what that watch looks like right now when it's hit with lume. So this planetarium is amazing because it is the world's smallest planetarium that's sitting on your wrist, right? It consists of the 6 planets, including the Earth, right? Yeah. And so let's go from the closest to the furthest in terms of their orbit. You have Mercury, Venus, Earth, then you have Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, right?
Exactly.
And then you can see that the planet Mercury, for example, is completing a full orbit every 88 days.
Yes.
But tell me how long it takes for Saturn to make a full rotation.
Yeah, so Saturn is the most on the exterior, and the further away from the Sun, the slower it gets.
Right.
And Saturn is turning once in 29.5 years.
Right. Okay. It's funny because I had a friend who bought one of these watches, I think from your retail partner in Singapore,
Yeah.
and then he started turning the crown, hoping to see them all spinning around, and then someone told him like, dude, you're going to be here for a while because Saturn is 29 years. Yeah. But I also love this watch as well because it's underlying the beauty of this planetarium. It's a masterpiece of mathematics and reduction gearing, right?
Exactly.
So if I'm not mistaken, you have 40 wheels underlying this. It's a massive reduction gear system. If I'm not mistaken, each of the round discs that is bearing one of the planets is a gear unto itself,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Now, what's really cool is that if you take all of this reduction gearing, right, and if you were to count the number of teeth that were involved, it's 700 teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what I find remarkable is that of those 700 teeth, not a single one of them is made using a contemporary profile turning machine. Instead, they're all being made by hand with vintage lathes.
Yeah.
And those lathes were the exact machines that you saw in the garage of Christiaan van der Klaauw 25 years ago when you went to visit him.
Exactly. We still do it the same way. Cut one teeth and then turn the wheel a little bit and then cut another one and then turn a little bit.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah.
Why was that important to you?
Well, I think for me, Christiaan van der Klaauw is craftsmanship. And of course, astronomy as well, but the craftsmanship that we have in Holland is crazy. And I really want to keep that to really show the world that we can do it. And by hand, everything by hand.
That's awesome, man. And I love that. And this is what I mean also, that I think this is kind of the perfect anti-hype watch, because it's a watch that's philosophical in terms of how, like, time telling and going to the roots of time telling. It's beautiful, incredibly discreet in its own way, but also really stunning. It's got a wonderful dial made of Aventurine. So Aventurine, for those of you who I'm sure you guys all know because you're all watch nerds out there, right? But it was a glass that was created in Murano in Venice in the 17th century and actually precedes the quartz crystal mineral called Aventurine also, right? Yeah. And it is a hand-blown glass that has a scattering of different elements in it to make it look like a random constellation. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the word Aventurine comes from the Italian word per avventura, which means by chance, right? Sorry, pur adventura, so, which means by kind of like working the accent a little bit, right? And so, like, this watch is just, when I look at it, it's visual poetry. It's so stunning. I love the idea that underlying it is not only a great philosophy, but also wonderful craft, including these hand-cut teeth, all 700 of them, that are made using vintage lathes that were in the garage of Christiaan van der Klaauw 25 years ago when you first met him.
Now in our workshop.
And now in your
new workshop in Naardenvesting, like near Amsterdam airport.
It just makes me fall in love with the watch even more. But one thing that I have to say that I absolutely adore is something modern, right? And that is your new in-house caliber. And I'm going to take the deployant off because I just love looking at this movement. So the initial versions of this watch had a movement that was made by Technotime, assembled by Sopron. Is that correct? But you have now created your first in-house automatic caliber, and it is honestly one of the most beautiful movements around. So of course, guys, we're not going to hold you in suspense. We're going to show you that movement in close-up detail right now. And look at the configuration of that movement. Pim, I want you to tell me about it because I love full bridge movements, especially when the bridges are these slender, elegant finger bridges. Why this configuration when you have an independent bridge for every single wheel of the train?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it too, because we had the gear train and you have those star-shaped, that's almost like a falling star.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've used the idea of like a shooting star to create these bridges. What I love about it is every one of these bridges, retaining every one of the elements of the train from the barrel all the way to the balance wheel, right, ends in a kind of three-dimensional star,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And because the star is elevated, you can have this really deep mirror polished countersink as well. So this is, to me, the perfect expression of artistic beauty in movement making also, and you crushed it, dude.
Thanks.
Now, in addition to that, I know, well, Pim, you being the technical genius that you are, you've made the movement actually very slim, right? So you've actually pushed the gear train to the perimeter, and then you've allowed the automatic winding system, the rotor, to sink a little bit into the base plate. Well, if you can call it a base plate, as everything's an individual bridge, right? So tell me a little bit about the rotor as well, because I love the configuration of this elegance as well with these, this radiating pattern.
Yeah, the rotor is made out of one piece. The inside is cut out, and it shows half of our logo, the sun with the 12 claws.
Amazing. I love these claws. They're so elegantly sort of like rendered now. And then you've got the weight here, which is made of tungsten carbide, if I'm not mistaken, which has been plated. Now talk to me a little bit about the decoration that we see as well, because on top of each of these bridges, in addition to the three-dimensional star with this stunning countersink, you have a laser engraved pattern, right?
Yeah, we really wanted to have something that combines this craftsmanship. All the countersinks are mirror polished with the star that it's brushed by hand.
Dude, when it hits the light, it's just nuts.
Yeah. This laser engraved stars they're so small you have to see it with a
loop. Yeah.
But it really pops out.
It's absolutely stunning. And it's such a wonderful merger between contemporary techniques and also like traditional craftsmanship, and just such a beautifully conceptualized movement. Like honestly, like when you said that we can make this watch for you, but we're going to put the new movement in it, it was just I was so happy.
Yeah, it took a little bit more patience for you, but I think it's worth it, right?
Absolutely. So anyway, the reason why we call this watch Prometheus is a little play on the word light, right? So as you guys know, or as I mentioned to you earlier, Prometheus was in Greek mythology the guy who defied the gods and stole fire and gave it to man. He brought light to mankind in the form of civilization, knowledge, and technology, right? And so here the word light, of course, references the super lightweight grade 5 titanium case. So tell me how difficult it was to polish that, because your case isn't straight. It's like, it's convex. Yeah.
Convex, yeah. People cannot imagine how difficult it is to polish titanium till this level. It takes already grade 5, a high quality titanium, and then you polish it. It's really tough to get everything out and to have really this mirror effect. But it's very nice because it's slightly darker than steel, stainless steel, and very light.
It's the perfect showcase to contrast with this beautiful Aventurine dial, the luminous planets, and then the incredible laser engraving of the movement in the back. And then, of course, the final connotation of the word light references the luminous planets, which were all painted by this gentleman right here. So, which means that we can only make 6 pieces of this because it takes a lot of his personal time. He only does it on the weekends in his basement, drinking beer. Am I correct? No, he does it in the bright light of his beautiful manufacture in
under
Holland.
a microscope, otherwise it's not possible.
Yeah. Pim, I want to thank you for this partnership. The watch is absolutely stunning. It's something that I would like to own myself. In fact, I have to think about maybe it's a tough year for budget because I've just renovated my apartment and I'm getting married in December, but this is very, very compelling. So thank you so much. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Christiaan van der Klaauw, Planetarium Prometheus.